What's up with David Price? Let's start with that. It seems relatively ominous, the forearm pain, all the precursors to eventually, hearing maybe what nobody wants to hear. How worried should they be about David Price?
Well, I think it's pretty worrisome. When you send him to the NFL Combine, where Dr. Andrews is at right now, and get an emergency appointment, there's something serious about it. So I think he's going to miss some time. Hopefully it's not Tommy John, the worst possible thing it could be, where he's going to miss a year and a half, and maybe it's just shut him down and needs some rest. We'll see. But he went to the main man himself. Dr. Andrews is the leader in everything, every sport, it seems like, and really being able to diagnose what guys have. And so we're waiting to hear back. Should hear something later today and see where he's headed. He's going to miss some time, there's no doubt.
Yeah, no, he definitely is, regardless. Even though his skip said that he's had this issue every year to an extent, this one obviously is much worse. What do they do instead? I mean, it seems like they spent a lot to try to make this rotation one of the best in baseball. What do they do if he misses significant time or including the entire season?
Well, you got the Chris Sale trade they made, so he's going to be right there in the top of the rotation. And then you obviously you have Porcello, who won the Cy Young last year. But Drew Pomerantz is really a guy that's kind of been a swing guy that didn't know what they were going to do with him. So immediately he jumps into the rotation. And so he'll be a big part. And the other thing is, it's the Red Sox. I think if they really need to go get something else, they'll go do it. But for now, I think they can really probably get by with the guys at the bottom of the rotation and be able to pull it through. So we'll see. But I think really right now their main thing is waiting to see what's going to happen with Price and figure it out. But the first option in my mind would be Drew Pomerantz.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you, Harold, we had Mike Scioscia on the show yesterday, and obviously when you talk to Scioscia, and they've got a long reboot, a long rebuild, hopefully Epler restocks the cupboards. I think he will, but they're a long ways away from winning, at least in my opinion. And obviously when you manage Mike Trout, you're managing either the best player in baseball or the second best player, depending upon what you prefer. And we threw this out on Twitter. I'm curious how you answer this, all right? So if you could have one player now to start a franchise with, you're the GM or the manager. And I ask this because it just seems like in all the years I've watched baseball, we've never seen this infusion of young talent. People will say Trout and Harper and Bryant, those are obvious, but Correa, Seager, Mookie Betts, Machado, Arenado, which player, position player, is Harold Reynolds saying that's the guy that I'm going to hitch my wagon to, and that's who I'm starting my team with?
Wow. I don't think there's been such an influx of options ever. Even Francisco Lindor we didn't mention, and you can probably throw another 10 names in there. For me, I love Mike Trout. It's hard not to start with Mike Trout. He plays in the middle of the diamond. He can lead off. He can hit in the middle of your order. He can do anything on the field. It's hard not to start with him. You look at Bryce Harper. He's really, at this point, Bryce Harper's still only 23, 24 years old. So you look at those two guys first, but I think the one guy that everybody overlooks is Nolan Arenado. Mm-hmm. So of the three names I just threw out there, I think the surprise would be that I would take Nolan Arenado. And there's a possibility I would take him. He's that good a player.
Yeah, no, I definitely know he's that good. I didn't think you would say him, although he was on my short list, obviously. Harold Reynolds, MLB Network, with us here on Tiki and Tierney. And the way I frame it, as I engage with my followers on Twitter, obviously Mike Trout is on my short list. But why I would not pick Mike Trout, and I would pick either a Seager, middle of the diamond guy, Pop, getting better clearly, Correa, same deal. Maybe not Altuve as much, but Trout's already got 5 years under his belt. He's already making $20 million this year and then $34 for the next couple of years. If I want to look at this incorporating finances and pure amount of baseball remaining, I wouldn't take Mike Trout. Not saying he's old, clearly, but his odometer is a little higher than other guys who might actually wind up being as good or maybe somebody could be better. I would probably take Seager. I would go with Corey Seager to start my team.
Yeah, I mean, I get all your variables that you threw out there, and Seager's, 23 years old?
He's younger than that. I think he's 21.
21 years old. He's right there really young, too. But Mike Trout is still only 26. So it's hard to kind of pass on Mike Trout at that age. He's still fairly young. So I don't know. I think Trout, regardless, is at the top of the heap. He just is. He's that good. He's that dynamic.
He's constantly in the conversation. A guy who used to be at the top of the heap, but no longer is because he can't stay healthy. David Wright, man, he has another issue that seems like it might put him on the shelf for a little while. What ultimately plays out here? You've seen some of these guys who try to hang on, but injuries derail them. What happens here?
Well, I think ultimately it's going to be David's decision, but I think he'll probably get to the point where he realizes he can't be the player he wants to be. And the frustration of that will probably lead him to retiring. And that will probably be the next thing that happens. He's been battling this for, 3 years now, 4 years of really trying to get on the field. And with every passing day, those injuries become harder to overcome. And you compensate one part of your body for the next. And before you know it, you got an injury you weren't even anticipating coming along because you compensated on another part of your body. So I think, it's going to be his decision. I totally agree with those that are saying it's got to be David's decision. I totally agree with that. But I think that he'll come to a point where he's like, I can't be the player I want to be, and I'm not helping the ball club, and he's not helping himself either. So I think eventually he's going to end up retiring.
I'm with you. It's sad because he was a borderline great player with a Hall of Fame trajectory, but a real good guy who loves baseball. And that seems like a simple statement. I think a lot of fans, Harold, just assume that every player loves their sport. That's not the case. You know it. But David Wright loves being on the diamond. But I'm with you. I fear that that he's pretty much finished. I know Mattingly spoke about that. Obviously, my guy Mattingly, the back issue back in the day. I wanted to ask you this here. We asked Sosha as well about some of the changes with the game, try to get the pace, the aesthetics, the intentional walk, and all that stuff. Listen, it's not going to change the game at all by bypassing 4 70-mile-per-hour meatballs before you put a guy on first base. But my opinion here, Harold, is that it's the first step of reconditioning the fans' mind. So once they accept this, and then they eventually accept maybe a pitch clock and a few other things that they'll eventually introduce, provided the Players Union plays ball, I think that this is really it's the first step of a few that ultimately really will change the pace of baseball. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. It's going to change the pace of the game, not 4 pitches pointing to first base and telling the guy to go there. What's going to change the pace is guys putting the ball in play. And if players put the ball in play, nobody's going to complain about how long games are taking. The problem that we have this great big magnifying glass on baseball right now is strikeouts are up, the ball's not in play, and too many people are standing around. And, when you teach a philosophy of get deep in the count and try to get on base with a walk, you're teaching boring, I'm going to be overpowered, you're not going to hit the best pitchers in the world taking strikes, and the game becomes boring.
Mm-hmm. It really does.
That's what has happened in baseball in the last 5 to 10 years is strikeouts are through the roof. So I think if you got the ball in play, that wouldn't be a concern. So with all the speed-up rules, look, I'm a proponent of the 20-second clock. But the problem is my generation, when I played, 20 years ago, nobody thought about a clock, and the game was fast-paced because guys put the ball in play. We had hit and runs. Guys were stealing bases.
Yeah.
That was the game that you played. And so it may have been the same length for all I know, but it didn't seem that way.
But let me, Harold, real quick, and I know Tiki's got something for you, but I don't want to lose the point about the clock here. If I'm, and my reference, I don't know if you heard it, but I think you had 60 steals, if I have that right, back in the late
True.
80s. Was it 60?
Yeah, 60. And that's the only, I know where you're headed. That's the only dicey thing with the clock. Because as a base runner, the clock gets to 18, 19 seconds, I'm running.
Yeah, let me just
figure that out.
Yeah, let me lay this out for those who may not think of it this. So if I'm a base stealer, whether it's Altuve, whomever, and I'm on first base, pitcher's at his belt, clock's ticking, 17. Eventually, I know he's got to go.
Right.
So
he's got to go home, you mean?
He's got to go home.
Yep.
He's got to throw the pitch. So once he gets to 19, I'm jumping. And you can't throw. I'm getting at least an extra half a step, and you're not throwing me out.
True. That's something that's got to be worked out. Which,
okay.
I don't know how they're going to address that one. That's going to be interesting to see. Maybe it changes with the base runner on. I'm not sure. But I do see thousands of games a year, and the guys are taking way too long. It does not take that long to figure out what pitch I want to throw and what I think he might be throwing me. And that's the big issue right now.
Yeah, Harold, one guy that we kept a little bit of an eye on last year and had a little bit of a down season is Andrew McCutchen. He's only 30 years old, and he hits 20 home runs plus home runs every single season. How long is he for the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Well, I pointed to you, Tiki. I really do. I mean, I look at the fact you had that commercial cutting people's hair off, and when he got his hair cut, his dreads, he's gone backwards, and I thought you were behind cutting those.
See, I have no hate for the Pirates, though.
No,
we like Clint Hurdle, man.
Yeah.
No, I think what happened with McCutchen, I watched it in September. He made an amazing adjustment. I think he's going to be totally fine. Everybody goes through a stretch where you have to make an adjustment. That's part of sports. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing or what level you're at. You have to make adjustments. And his starting point was always setting the bat on his shoulder and then getting back and getting ready to swing. Well, that timing mechanism wasn't working, and he had to make an adjustment. So I saw him in September take the bat off his shoulder and get ready to hit. Now, all of a sudden, he's reading the pitcher quicker. Everything speeds up, and he was back on timing of hitting the ball. And he had a pretty good September. So I think he's already made that adjustment. We'll see him take off in April, and I'm looking to see the same player that we saw for a number of years.
I hope you're right. I'm going to respectfully disagree only because of this. And I know the slight tweak that he had, and I get it. I understand what you're saying here. But, you know, the adjustments that hitters need to make usually don't happen in the middle of their prime. And I worry that there's more erosion physically a little earlier than people expected with McCutchen. I don't think he has a monster year. I just don't, Harold. Something looks really off with him. I mean, they had to sit him for 4 straight days.
Yeah, well, he was going through trying to figure it out. I disagree with you. We'll have to watch. But you know the beauty of being able to agree or disagree?
Yeah.
At the end of the year, we can sit there and say, hey, you were right or you were wrong.
That's the best, yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. So
I love it.
We'll get on the call in late September, and we'll figure it out.
Well, let's make sure we get you on before September, and maybe even get you on after the WBC, which you guys will have coming up on March 6th. Obviously, you watch Harold Reynolds all the time on MLB Tonight. Plus, listen, I say it all the time. You guys do a great job. I think you guys have fun. I love the banter, the interaction. It's just the network has. Listen, I'm a baseball guy. Tiki knows that, but the network has made the sport look fast again, and it's noticeable. And before we let you go, who's the next great Cuban player? We know about Chapman. Abreu's been here for a couple of years. Cuba has great players. Anybody coming up that we should watch in the WBC?
Yohan Moncada. You mean out of Cuba? Most of the guys playing in WBC, I'm not sure who they are at this point in time because we've really brought over some huge talent in the last 5-6 years from out of Cuba. You know, so I don't know what the next wave of guys will be. After we watch a little bit, we'll see. But they've really cracked down on guys being able to defect because we just pilfered them for a number of years.
Yeah, we keep taking them.
But in the big leagues, Yohan Moncada with the White Sox,
Red Sox
21 years old. I got a chance to see him in spring training. Last week I was in Arizona and really got a chance to see him work, see him play, see him move, you know, right up front instead of seeing him on TV or hearing reports. And I was blown away by his talent. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this year.
Does he remind you of anybody?
Well, you know what? He's bigger. He's stronger. He's like almost built like an NFL running back. He's that stocky and strong.
Like it.
But yeah.
But the last guy we saw like that didn't pan out, right? The last guy we saw like that was Puig, right? Puig was built that way, and we loved him, and then he kind of disappeared.
Yeah, and I think the one thing with Puig that's different with Moncada's going to be in the infield, and they're going to say, go get him, go play every day. You know, Puig had 7 outfielders in the Dodgers outfield, and when he struggled, they sat him.
Yeah.
This kid's going to play through it all, and I think he's going to be really benefit better because of that. But he reminds me a lot of Roberto Alomar, switch hitter, but he's bigger and stronger than Robbie.
Oh, is that all?
He's that type of a player, though. He's going to be really special.
All right, we got the name circled. Harold, good spot, buddy. Keep doing your thing. MLB Tonight, WBC begins Monday, and we will recircle and revisit our McCutchen disagreement. And you know what? I hope you're right because I do like him, but I sense that, well, you know where I stand. We'll talk soon, okay?
Hey, thanks for having me. Tiki, I love the commercials, man.
Appreciate you.
You doing your thing. I love it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll see y'all.
Be good.
All right, brother. He's got that old school hairdo. Maybe you give him a little fade at some point.
Go chop him up a little bit.